Welcome back to Black News Tonight. The U.S. State Department reports up to 50,000 women and children are forced into sexual slavery in this country every single year. A film currently in production aims to shed light on the world of human trafficking and the people who fall prey to its predators.
In this business, it's hard to get out.
I just want to take it slow.
But I love you.
In these streets, no one will hear you scream.
Based on true events, Turnt is written by Meiko Taylor, who has been working with trafficked youth for more than 8 years. The story revolves around Mia, who becomes an unsuspecting victim of sex trafficking. Meiko Taylor is currently raising funds toward finalizing the production. Joining me now is the writer and director, Meiko Taylor, who is also the CEO of the Power Project. I'm also joined by Chloe Vega, the program manager at the Power Project. Thank you both for joining me. Meiko, first of all, what inspired you to tell this important and powerful story?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Mark, so much for having us. And I would say years working at a group home with kids that are in foster care and on probation. And it was really a full circle moment for me because I grew up as a foster youth in the Illinois system. And so when one of the youth I had worked with had been trafficked, I didn't realize how prevalent it really was here in the U.S. And so I started doing research and just kind of getting some understanding around this issue and realized that it was something that was just really rampant within the foster care system, especially all over the country. And so I just got really passionate about doing prevention and just wanting to use my gifts to impact this issue. I thought film was a great way to do that.
No, film is an excellent way to do that. It really resonates with people when you see what's on that screen. Chloe, you also are involved with human trafficking prevention. How did you get so involved?
So I actually got involved about 7 years ago. I started working with another organization, but I had a heart for this cause because I was a victim of sexual abuse in my childhood, and I could have easily been one of the kids that we work with. Sexual abuse is definitely one of the vulnerabilities that lead to human trafficking. And so I just didn't want any other child, didn't want any other person to become a victim of this. And also my mom was a victim of sex trafficking as well. So I grew up in Brooklyn, kind of in that lifestyle. So that's kind of where my passion and journey to fighting this fight started.
Wow, it's such an important fight to engage in, and I think for so many people, Meiko, they don't even realize that this is happening. I mean, in cities like Atlanta, obviously with the huge international airport there's so much human trafficking, so much sex trafficking that takes place in that city with black girls and brown girls. And many people who live in the city and in the surrounding areas don't even know about it. I mean, it's amazing how little many of us know about this.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I would say from the National Missing Children's, they actually did a report that showed that reports of human trafficking was submitted in all 50 states, right? And so it's happening all over the U.S. Here in California, where I am, we have 3 major hubs for trafficking in the Bay Area, in San Diego, and here in Los Angeles. And like you mentioned, it's happening to black and brown children. And I was going to say girls, but it's not just girls, it's boys as well. It's really any gender. It crosses social economic statuses. You can be a parent that gave your kid a phone and they can be in the other room and you don't even realize that you just gave a potential predator access to them online. So it is happening, and we want to just call awareness to it and bring solutions for being able to equip youth with tools to keep themselves safe. And so I really think Turnt will be able to do that on a larger scale. And then we drill that down to the community level, and we go into schools, we go into group homes, into different entities, community organizations, and we bring prevention training that's engaging, that is interesting, that sparks dialogue and conversation around the issue. And I have to tell you, when we talk with the youth, they are aware, they know that this is going on, and it's really important for the general community to rally around them, to raise their awareness about it so that we can help protect our youth.
Absolutely. Chloe, as we said, this can happen to anybody. But according to U.S. State Department data, which we can see, more than 60% of sex trafficking victims are black. Why is the black community disproportionately affected by trafficking?
Well, there's a lack of resources, right? There's a lack of resources in black communities and brown communities. And so um, there's so many different layers to the lack of, there's a lack of education, right, in our community. Sometimes we have a lot of kids that are in single family homes. We have a lot of children that have experienced abuse. We have a lot of kids that are just living in environments that maybe are very different than some of our counterparts, right? So the vulnerabilities are much higher. The poverty rates are sometimes through the roof. So when we talk of kids that are highly vulnerable or disproportionately vulnerable, it's because of these circumstances and sometimes because of the communities that they grow up in. And so what we see is we we have to combat this in a way, like Meiko said, that is engaging, because we need to be completely 100% honest with our youth. They are going through too much for us to just come in and do any kind of training with them and just tell them a little bit of the stats or details about human trafficking. We have to let them know what's really going on. And oftentimes when we walk into these classrooms, when we walk into these community groups, they often know more about it than we do sometimes. And what we hear is oftentimes these traffickers and recruiters are building just kind of loving relationships with these kids. So what we see is that traffickers and recruiters are coming in to this child's life and filling a need. Maybe they are growing up in a home that is financially unstable. So the trafficker will come in and fill that need. They'll buy them food. They'll buy them clothes. We talk about what are the basic human needs of life. It's food, shelter, clothing. And oftentimes we see that recruiters and traffickers are fulfilling those very needs for them. So I would say it's a multitude of issues that affect Black and Brown communities, but the number one reason is that there's a lack of resources. There's a lack of resources in our education system, a lack of experiences that our kids get to engage in. Oftentimes, our kids go to school and they go home. Then they go home to their devices, right? And their screen time is through the roof, and our predators are accessing them, talking to them on their devices.
Yeah.
So I would say that's probably one of the main reasons.
No, I mean I think you hit the nail right on the head there. I mean, we're disproportionately vulnerable, and where we're vulnerable and where our needs aren't being met, there are predatory figures who are there to meet those needs and exploit, the people who are the most needy. It's a very tragic thing. Meiko, when I think about your experience, both of your experiences, you have a combined, 15 years experience doing this, but after you spent more than 8 years working with at-risk teens, you've worked with teens who are in foster care, people who are on probation. There are some measures that you've learned, I would imagine, that will help us protect ourselves and help us protect our children from these predators. Again, we're not blaming the victim here, but the question is just are there things we can do to give ourselves a fighting chance here as we try and fight the systemic issues that get us into this place at the same time?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the number one thing is communication and talking to your youth. I'm a mom of an 11-year-old, and I've had uncomfortable conversations with him about relationships, about even sex. And I think that's something that we have to not shy away from. I think it's really important to develop children who know themselves, who love themselves, who have, self-esteem about them. Because one of the things we see is traffickers really do try to prey on that. They look for the vulnerable youth who are looking for love, who are looking for a relationship and support. And so being able to provide that. I think also just educating ourselves, the general community, which is, where we try to help and come in at, and just making sure that youth are aware. I know that when we go into classrooms and we do our training, we have kids that now they have something, now they have a name for what's been happening to them. They realize that it's actually a thing, and they're able to seek out help and support for what's been happening to them. And so I think those are the main things that I would say as really important, is educating yourself, making sure that you're willing to have those uncomfortable conversations, and providing support for youth, just a mentor, someone that they can talk to, someone that they can engage with, healthy peers that are around them, healthy activities that they can be involved in, and things like that. So yeah, and I know we have an approach where we really want to support the whole family. I think that, like Chloe mentioned, just coming from different environments where maybe the home life is unstable. And I know there are a lot of state departments in local cities who are really looking at supporting the entire family and trying to keep families together, working to surround the families with support so that the youth are not having to be removed from the home and end up being in more vulnerable positions. So those are some of the things that I would definitely recommend that we can do to keep safe.
Those are all important things, and we'll continue to stay vigilant on this issue to spread the word here on Black News Channel, and certainly here on BNT, Black News Tonight. And also, we want to encourage people to help support your project, because we cannot wait for Turn to come out, because it is not only going to be a wonderful film, but it's going to spread the type of information that our community needs. Meiko and Chloe, thank you so much for joining me. And again, I wish you nothing but continued success on your projects. Absolutely.
Thank you, Mark.
Let us know what you're thinking. Hit us up on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. You can hit us at BNC News, and be sure to visit the website bnc.tv.